My name is Bill Pease. I'm the Chief Scientist at Underwriters Laboratories Information and Insights Business Unit. And what I'm here today to talk to you about is our experience working all along the chemical supply chain with trying to establish a platform that makes it easier to identify what kind of innovations are needed in green chemistry to support what type of product development by brand manufacturers to respond to consumer demand. So what I'm going to run through is basically what we call the demand chain for green products. I think Denise's talk actually really shows that there are already folks at the supplier end of the demand chain who see real business opportunity in doing things differently, making more sustainable feedstock inputs to, say, formulated products, and however often struggle with finding their way to market quickly for those kinds of innovations. And you have brands as well that are trying to understand what makes a green product, what do they need to change about their existing production process to put greener products on the market, and really are not getting that kind of information from most of their direct suppliers or indirect suppliers, and are often somewhat disconnected from what consumers actually want. You have retailers who are aggregating consumer demand and who are probably in the best position at this point to really define at least what the consumer market thinks green products are. Because one thing that's for sure about this demand chain is that everybody, when they hear this word green, is thinking something different, and it really confuses the signals that the market is creating that product producers and chemical suppliers need to be able to respond to. It's almost easier sometimes to dismiss the growing demand for green products as just a fad, because it seems like all these different types of attributes are being emphasized, often with no scientific coherence and no real rational explanation for why is this green and that not green. So UL's in a pretty unique position. We work with every node in the supply chain. Those of you who are direct suppliers may be working with us to have your products tested for safety or other issues. Brands are working with us as well to comply with safety standards. We have a whole business organization that is devoted to safety data sheet and chemical management. Retailers work with us because we operate most of the product onboarding programs at major U.S. retailers. If you want to get your product on a shelf in Walmart or Target, the data on your product is going to come through our systems, and that product's going to be qualified according to that retailer's rules. And in addition, we have a presence in the consumer market with consumer-facing applications like Good Guide, which I'll show you an example of. So we see ourselves in a relatively unique position of having a presence all along the supply chain, and believe we have an ability to help folks understand what consumers want, help retailers aggregate that consumer demand, and then translate it into market specifications that end product manufacturers and chemical suppliers can have an easier time responding to. So we see this as a real area of opportunity where improving the flow of information up and down the supply chain about what we define as green, what the opportunities are of putting products on the market that meet those definitions, can substantially ease the types of problems that BASF has had, for example, where in certain situations you might have a really smart solution to a problem that doesn't get a market for 10 years until regulatory demand in response to citizen pressure creates that market. So the demand chain for green products is pretty clear, but it's very unorganized right now. And as a result in that, we see, very sporadic but obviously business-damaging incidents regularly occurring. The lumber liquidators, flooring, formaldehyde and wood flooring controversy of about 9 months ago is a really good example of this, where not out of the blue, anyone who's managing pressed wood products knows that there are potentially formaldehyde issues associated with that, particularly if your supply chain is largely invisible to you. But here we have a major retailer of flooring products kind of caught in the public glare and literally losing more than half of its market value in a matter of weeks for failure to anticipate this, the need really to be sure you're on the market with a product that is not exposed to that kind of reputation or regulatory risk. And it really is, those of you who work in end products or read the US media, you know that these incidents occur with regularity. They are defining consumer perceptions about whether chemical suppliers can be trusted, which brand product manufacturers can be trusted, in ways that often you might even consider unfair, but it's happening, and it's being organized by NGOs who are very aggressively taking on where they see the real weak points are in this overall supply chain, and that's by most of the NGOs at this point are focusing on retailers. They know that retailers need to do what consumers want. Retailers are not in a position to change consumers' minds about what chemical is safe or unsafe, what constitutes a good product or not. And so folks who are pursuing what I would call sort of chemical control agendas that in advance of the regulatory process, like the Mind the Store campaign, their primary focus these days is the major US retailers pointing out in public to those retailers what chemicals are contained in their stores right now by virtue of the fact that they have personal care or household chemical products, or you name the product category, and demanding that those retailers do more to create incentives or potentially deny shelf space to product manufacturers who are putting products like these into consumers' hands. And this is a very effective strategy. If you look up Mind the Store, you will find that its name associated with CVS or Walgreens, and almost every story will be a story that has captured local news media outlets because a number of consumers at one of those retail outlets is returning products because they contain problematic chemicals. So it is not going to change. And it is a hard thing, I think, in many, particularly among sort of chemically knowledgeable audiences, for folks to sort of accept as the reality. But it is the reality, and it isn't only going to be resolved by scientific arguments about whether the chemical is safe or not. The retailers are not going to wait around for that. They really need to respond to what the consumers want now. And the consumers themselves are actually receiving much better guidance and much more extensive information than they've ever had in the past about the potential hazards in consumer products. You have services like Good Guide, the one that I've been involved in operating. I'm basically the sort of scientist and toxicologist behind the Good Guide rating system. You have more NGO or more activist-oriented services like environmental working groups, Skin Deep. They make it absolutely as easy to get a weather report. You can now find out what are the chemicals in the product that you're holding in your hand, and which of those chemicals have some aura of potential hazard or controversy. And this is largely guiding consumer perception. I saw even this morning in my email an NMI marketing report which surveyed U.S. consumers, and anywhere from 60 to 80% of U.S. consumers, depending on whether they're on the standard end of the consumer spectrum or the green end of the consumer spectrum, believe that chemicals in personal care and laundry and household products are having an adverse impact on their health or the environment. So that is a huge market uphill battle to try to help brand manufacturers avoid. They need to begin to think about how to do that. Now, the idea, whether we like it or not, is that this type of information that's transforming people's attitudes towards what an acceptable formulation is becoming easier and easier to obtain and will ultimately be thoroughly integrated into the purchasing process. So right now, for example, the Good Guide app is available on your mobile phone. You scan a product, it gives you a report on the healthiness of the ingredients in that product. Eventually, you're going to see this type of rating and information service integrated into online purchasing systems and recommendation systems like Amazon's or eBay's. So the type of knowledge embedded in these applications is only going to spread, and its utility to consumers is going to grow. What consumers are learning from these types of applications is that with a broad definition of what a bad actor or potentially hazardous chemical is, almost 2/3 of the personal care and household cleaning products on the US market have one of those chemicals. And that is really the challenge now, I think, for formulation scientists and product developers. You could decide that you're going to try to hold the line and continue to put products on the market, for example, that rely on parabens as your preservative. Those products are going to encounter, both at the retail buyer end and in the consumer marketplace, increasing resistance to purchase. So this is a huge issue, and it's now possible with systems like the ones that we operate to understand which product categories are more or less exposed, eyeshadow or nail polish, and it's also possible this is an example of a UL Purview platform dashboard using publicly available data. I could as easily show you these results by brand and let you know the greenness, quote unquote, in terms of its exposure to reputation and market risk due to presence of potentially problematic ingredients, one by one, which brands have the largest exposure. So there's a tremendous amount of information out there that we know is shaping the market, the consumer market. How are retailers responding? Well, the program I've been most involved in is Target's Sustainable Product Index. And I think it's a very innovative program that you're going to see spread to other US retailers. And basically, Target has come up with its own definition of what constitutes a green product. It requires, actually right now it's optional, it's about to switch to requiring its brand product manufacturers to provide Target with the data needed to score their products against its standard. It's a custom standard. I'll explain the details to you in a moment. But the big picture important thing to understand is what Target gets out of this is the ability to look at everyone who's pitching products. So what's their portfolio look like in terms of its overall greenness? On this, you don't need to pay attention to the numbers. A relatively small number of products are at the right end of the scale, definitely very green by virtue of Target's definition. Most products currently in their systems are below average in terms of where they would like to see products. That's going to create a tremendous opportunity for brand manufacturers who begin to pitch and design products that basically score well on these types of indices, and it's going to put increasing pressure on manufacturers who are left with with products that only fall in the left-hand part of this spectrum. And excuse me, this is a transformation, because up until this information is now available, to Target merchants who have historically entered into contractual relationships with vendors of personal care products based on all kinds of, do the consumers like it? Do you want it? What are the pricing conditions, delivery conditions, and stuff like that? They're now looking side by side at, well, is this actually going to help me meet Target's goal of putting more sustainable products on the market signing a deal with this vendor, or is this vendor actually going to cause a problem for me on that metric? And do I need to have a conversation with this vendor about the portion of their product portfolio that is scoring poorly? So it's putting real power in the hands of people who brand manufacturers and their direct suppliers need to be very responsive to. Folks who control access, in many cases for brand manufacturers of personal care products, to more than 50 or 60% of their US market share. So what is the Target Sustainable Product Index? It evolves every year. This is a description of how it operated last year. It basically looks into a product's data set, and it scores it primarily based on the ingredients in that product's formulation. So it looks at those ingredients, it compares them to a set of undesirable chemicals in Target's defined universe, and hands out points as a result. It also takes a look at whether all the ingredients in that product have actually been disclosed, and so that the product can be fully assessed, or are there generic ingredients in that product that can't be assessed, things like fragrance and stuff like that. So most of the index is focused on this whole issue of ingredients. They have a component of the index which is more environmentally oriented, less human health oriented. It looks primarily at packaging and at the sort of resource material efficiency of the packaging at both the primary packaging, secondary packaging, and tertiary packaging. It's a very sophisticated system, rewards packaging that is less packaging per unit of product. It rewards packaging that can be easily recycled by available facilities. It rewards packaging that has high percentages of post-consumer waste. And it also looks marginally at issues like water quality and at animal testing. Animal testing primarily because that's a key consumer demand amongst Target's guests. But Target basically feels like whether or not we believe in animal testing for toxicology purposes or whatever, people do not want their products tested on animals, and they need to know that in their scoring system. And then finally, it looks at what I'd say is the positive side of the balance sheet that any product can bring. So the product manufacturer needs to tell Target what's in the product, needs to tell Target facts about the product's packaging. It can also bring positive information to the table, and that's mainly in the form of third-party certifications. And Target recognizes that there are some authoritative third-party systems who have looked at a product and can basically credibly be trusted to have flagged the best products in a particular category. So for example, the EPA Safer Choice certification or Cradle to Cradle certification both get substantial rewards in Target's system. If you move to the feedstock level, bio-based ingredients that are USDA certified get additional points. And if you move to the packaging, use of sustainably sourced packaging materials, SFI, for example, get rewarded. So it's a multi-attribute system. Clearly reflects Target's own priorities. There's no standard definition of sustainability that I think is likely to emerge in the retail space. It continues, as I said, to be largely driven by what consumers want, and consumers' primary focus is not on the long-term environmental impacts or the global greenhouse gas intensity of a product. It is on this issue of ingredient safety. The way Target uses this, I think, is very informative for folks all along the supply chain. So, they want to be able to tell their suppliers, the vendors who produce products that Target buys, what consumers want, and get those suppliers making more of those kinds of products. This is primarily a business-driven program. They see, they have surveyed, Target knows its consumers very well. They tend to be women with kids, 20 to 40, care a lot about what they put on their kids or in their kids if it's food, and they have a certain set of attitudes, and Target wants to maintain its hold on that audience and grow it. And so it wants products that respond to what those types of consumers need. it also wants to take advantage of that market demand itself. So it is using this type of system to curate its own brand products. If major national brands are not going to step in and respond to this consumer demand, Target sees an opportunity to actually put out specs for its own brand products that make them greener. And this is, I think, something we're seeing all across the retail space as well. Many national retail-owned brands are developing at least sub-brands that have a focus on either health or sustainability. And really, Target is looking at this from its position in the overall supply chain. It wants to incentivize the creation of more sustainable products. Right now, if you come to them with a product that scores poorly, they're not going to deny you access to their shelves. This is really a carrot-oriented program. They're going to give you special marketing benefits if you actually have a greener product. And the best of those products get incorporated into special marketing programs that Target has put a lot of money into. These are multi-brand national advertising campaigns. Last year it was called Made to Matter, where they picked, basically curated a set of products and highlighted in every one of their stores how these products were good for a person or good for the environment. And they really did see a substantial uplift. So brands who participated in this program saw substantially increased sales. And it's this feedback loop that Target is ultimately trying to tap into, that if they can demonstrate the market viability and attractiveness of putting a greener product on the market, then they'll get more of them. They'll lock their consumers into becoming loyal Target buyers. And this is a very tightly designed system from that respect, and any brand can respond to it. So it's, and some brands are, I think, some major international brands are well in advance of the kind of, they know these types of incentives are going to emerge in the retail market. A really good example is Unilever. Unilever did not wait for this type of program to come out before it started to reposition many of its product lines so that they have embedded in them some set of sustainability attributes that can be pitched. May not be fully aligned with what Target wants, but at least it's cognizant of the way the overall market is going. So what happens next? Well, obviously the challenge is rationalizing these new market specifications and getting them down lower in the supply chain to end product manufacturers and their direct chemical suppliers. And I work very closely with Method, which is a San Francisco-based niche green cleaning company. And I think they represent probably the best example of a brand that both sees its future market is entirely in the green consumer segment, and that its ability to produce products that align well with these retail evaluation systems and with these consumer rating services is going to be the key to its success. Method has developed its own internal sustainable product evaluation system, which they run also on our Purview platform, that looks at 4 broad areas of potential impact: human health, environmental health, sustainability, and packaging. And they have integrated into their actual product design process, measuring every product that exists in their portfolio right now against these metrics, and then trying to figure out what they can do to optimize products across all these attributes so that their portfolio, and they've now integrated this to the point where, there are compass of green scores for their entire current portfolio, and sales data and executive rewards are also paid out based on are we basically making a contribution to Method's corporate goal of moving its supply chain, moving all of its products to greener and greener products. So it's a very effective way for Method to basically translate the retail market signal into its own formulators. The formulators are now looking at information, and the product developers, that show them, if I do it this way, it will actually score better in these external systems. And We're talking about relatively sophisticated, from a science perspective, what I call multi-attribute sustainability evaluations. These can be built up from a combination of different things. They can be built up from publicly available data. They can be built up from information that Method itself has about its packaging choices and manufacturing practices. And it can also be data that's acquired from its chemical input, feedstock ingredient suppliers. And they can look across every attribute, see how a product is doing. Here's a product that might have a problem with some aspect of acute toxicity, but otherwise looks green. And they can score their products to understand, which are the best candidates. For example, if you've got two different potential material inputs, you're going to want to choose the one that obviously meets your functional use requirement, but that also overall has the better compass of green score. If you do that, your product is going to look better and perform better, both on Method's internal evaluation system and then on systems like the Good Guide rating system or the Target TSPI. And eventually, what is going to happen is that these retailer evaluation systems or these consumer-oriented marketing systems are actually going to be integrated into tools that you folks are already probably all currently using, like maybe UL Prospector if you're a formulator of ingredients in the personal care space, where product developers and formulators go to these services like UL Prospector to learn what the chemical supply chain has to offer. Well, part of the eventual, and they get your fact sheets, they get your safety data sheets. Eventually they're going to get pre-screened. Your ingredients are going to be pre-screened against a number of these major purchasers' evaluative systems, so that folks can understand, if I actually want, if the company I'm selling to is highly dependent on Target, I want to make sure that all the material inputs I provide them with don't eventually expose them to market risk with Target. And I'm going to know it at the point I actually put its record into the UL Prospector system. That's what we envision as happening in the future. That within the company, they will be comparing and optimizing their product designs over sets of material inputs, which they will have information about in terms of how those material inputs affect the end product's viability in the retail and consumer market. So what is happening, and this may be painful to some of you, is that they are now beginning to use systems like ours to collect more and more data from direct chemical suppliers. A lot of these sustainability evaluations require more information than has historically been disgorged by the supplier community. I think everyone's used to needing to disclose, CAS number level attributes of ingredients that they're providing to people, or know that those, say, toxicology or environmental fate characteristics are generally available in the scientific or regulatory literature. What we're seeing now, for example, in Method's system, is that two different suppliers of the same CAS level ingredient are going to be separately evaluated based on, well, what was the feedstock that the supplier themselves used to create that ingredient? Was it sustainably sourced or bio-based, or is it petroleum feedstock derived? They're actually asking their suppliers to provide information about the greenhouse gas intensity and water use intensity of material inputs that they are purchasing. So there will be, I think, a trend towards increasingly rigorous material qualification that will result from these shifts in the marketplace that folks are going to need to respond to. And that's why we're in the business that we're in. We see ourselves as playing a significant role in, like I said at the very beginning, helping retailers understand what consumers want and then representing those consumer requirements in purchasing specifications that they can pass down to the brand product manufacturers, and that the brand product manufacturers can pass down to the direct chemical suppliers. And when we've got a system that moves that type of information up and down the supply chain relatively efficiently, I think we'll see much faster movement towards sustainable product development. Thanks a lot. Don't know if any folks have got questions, but I'm happy to take them. Yeah. Yeah.
So the scorecards that are getting developed by, say, Target or other retailers as well as Method in-house, how are they determining what really are the right levels, that what they're asking for is actually possible on the ingredient side? Because ideally, everybody would just use white vinegar and baking soda for cleaning and personal care items. So how does it fall on the spectrum of chemicals?
Well, it's by trial and error, because I mean they realize there's like not all products that are formulated with the cleanest, greenest, naturalist ingredients are effective or have a very large market share. So the one thing that's really happening with the retailers of the world is that they're not naive about this. They're not looking to exclude Johnson & Johnson or Unilever or major product categories from their shelves just because it contains ingredient X, Y, or Z. They want to know in advance if they're likely to be subject to a mind the store campaign around baby shampoo, where there's a carcinogen in it that's not allowed in Europe by the brand but is in the U.S. They want to be able to anticipate that might be a particular product they don't want to stock, but they really don't feel like they have the technical expertise to make ingredient choice, right? That's not it. What they do feel like they've got the ability to do is to translate to the end product manufacturers at least, a list of currently controversial ingredients that either they need to be persuaded and there needs to be some public credibility to that persuasion need to be there, think paraben-based preservatives, or that there are safer alternatives that brands are moving towards. And when they see that, I think it's not all driven by chemophobia. It is balanced by market demand for functional utility, but will be an increasing premium on give me your information about functional utility and then let me see what its market risk profile looks like against these various systems. And there may very well be discrepancies, and in Target's case, both Target and Walmart have retail evaluation programs that are definitely stigmatizing parabens, and they have taken the initiative to try to see if they can help organize the end product and direct chemical supplier community into some kind of innovation program that gets everybody invested in producing a better class of preservatives and sharing some of the market risk in doing that. And it hasn't really gotten off the ground, and I don't know that it will be effective. So I think it really is trial and error at this point, with their primary concern being make sure we don't have anything that in these products that really embarrasses us with our consumers and affects our own brand, right? So the CVS, for example, which was targeted by Mind the Store, took a lot of its critiques very much to heart, because CVS is in the process of rebranding itself as a health-oriented organization, and it did not make sense to have toys being returned to its stores due to the presence of obviously problematic chemicals. And so, it'll be biting off a little bit here in category X versus Y until there's more rational information transfer up and down the entire supply chain. Any other yeah?
So I work with chemicals for the textile industry. One of the issues that I'd appreciate your thoughts on is there's a whole lot of these different compliance programs. Retailers, brands, and third parties, they all have their own analysis costs and audit costs. They all push them right down the supply chain to the chemical company right at the end, who has very little capacity to include that in their costs and pricing.
Right. And I think that is a real market inefficiency right now in the way that market demand for greener chemical products or more sustainable products gets communicated. There's the cost. There's the fact that the standards are sometimes inconsistent and almost point you in some cases in different directions. That's almost worse, where you're getting different incentivized to go this way with one standard and this way with another. I don't have an easy solution to that. I think that the UL sees certainly a market opportunity in standardizing that as much as possible. So for example, being an aggregator of all those different standard systems and being able to conduct, using a common data set provided by a supplier, evaluations against 5 or 6 multiple evaluative regimes, so that the costs of understanding whether or not a product or ingredient complies with X, Y, or Z is at least easier, and then you're not constantly being asked to resubmit entirely similar data sets to multiple platforms, that sort of thing. But right now, it's very much the way you describe it, and I think it's a serious issue because, and this is classic, if you think about what retailers really do care about, ultimately the cost of the products that they've got coming into their stores. Some retailers are really good about driving cost out of every step in their supply chain while adding on these kinds of requirements, and it generates a lot of friction all the way down the supply chain as the costs are imposed, but there's no compensatory reward for becoming one of the green suppliers. What Target is trying to do, I think, is balance out a little bit the Walmart approach, which is probably what you might characterize the first strategy, with we will give you benefits, right? So that it's still not necessarily solving the problem all the way down to your direct chemical supplier, but to the end product manufacturer, there's a cost of entering their data into our system for evaluation. If they do well, they're going to more than recoup that cost in the marketing promotions that Target is going to give them. So I think where we're not really well structured is to get those economic benefits flowing even lower than that, below the end product manufacturer down to the supplier. Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you all very much for your attention.